Welcome to the Baseball Together podcast with your hosts, Blackjack Brad and Briggy Blue Eyes. And now, Baseball Together.
Baseball family, welcome to this week's episode of the Baseball Together podcast. My name is Brad. I'm going to be flying solo this week. Brig is out, but I guess that's a fair trade because I'm going to be out on Thursday night during the live episode. Brig will be flying solo because I'm going to be at my son's last ever soccer game. So he's moving on to other sports, and we're excited for him, and he's excited. But anyway, so I'm here by myself today, but before I get moving on anything else, I want to remind you about Chinook Seedery. Head to ChinookSeedery.com to get the best seeds ever. It says so on the package. We believe so. That's why we partnered with them. We actually reached out to partner with them, and they said, let's do it. So here we are. We got you a discount code. You can use code BTPOD at checkout to save 10% off of your order and get the best seeds ever. I think this week my flavor of the week is Hatch Chili. I love those ones, but I am an equal opportunist when it comes to Chinook seeds. Brig is all about Parmesan and pepper. So go give them a try. Use code BTPOD at checkout. Save 10% and support your mouth, support your wallet, support the show all at the same time. Let us know what you think. Okay, first things first. Phillies reliever Jose Alvarado was suspended for 80 games for PEDs. He said that he was taking a weight loss drug. Okay. I get it. Taking a drug for weight loss. However, the thing that you hear from players all the time who speak out against guys who test positive for PEDs is speak to your trainer, speak to other members of the organization. There are people who you can call to get everything that you want to ever imagine putting into your body, get it approved to find out whether or not you are going to pop out for PEDs. Okay? My first thought was amphetamines because there is a weight loss pill out there that is, it's part of the amphetamine group. Turns out that's not the case. It was a testosterone thing, which I've been told is that if you're using testosterone for weight loss, it works very, very well. You can cut fat without even trying, basically, is what it comes down to. And that's what it was with him. It's a testosterone pill, and I guess he says he didn't know, but when it comes down to it, there's no excuse because you have those resources. You have people within the organization who can confirm everything for you. I mean, if I'm sitting here drinking my soda on the show and I had a question, and I was an MLB player, I could call them and be like, hey, is this good to go? And they're like, well, probably shouldn't be drinking it. But yeah, okay, great, thank you. So, really no excuse for guys to get popped for PEDs. However, it seems like it happens a couple times a year still. Right? We had Jurickson Profar earlier this year, Noel by Marte last year. There's always one or two who get hit. And I don't know, I guess they still think that the incentive to perform is still greater than the punishment. So I think we're going to continue to see it because guys just have that mentality. So he'll be gone for 80 games, but that does mean that he'll be back before the end of the season. But he's not eligible for the postseason because if you test positive for PEDs, and even if you're back in time for the postseason, you do not get to play. You're out, which I think is cool. That's a great thing because, I mean, aside from the money, what else are you playing for? Championships, right? So I guess you kind of see where guys' priorities lie when they test positive for PEDs sometimes. I don't know. Anyway, but this is a little bit of a problem for the Phillies. Yes, they have a talented roster top to bottom. They're a good team, really great team, but their bullpen has not been the best this year. And losing one arm in a bullpen can be really tough because I feel like quality relievers in today's landscape are tough to come by. A lot of teams, you've got your closer who's a lockdown guy most of the time, and then you've got your setup man and maybe one or two other high leverage guys who you really lean on. Losing one of them, that's a big problem. That is a big problem. Fortunately for the Phillies, Jordan Romano has been good. Actually, I'll say great. He's been really great in his last 8 appearances. He has not given up a run, hasn't even given up a hit in his last 4. This is as of Monday night. So it seems like he's getting his form back, which is great for the Phillies, but you got to have another guy in that bullpen, like I said. So I think they'll be in the market for a high leverage reliever to add to the pen in Philadelphia. So keep an eye out on that. I don't know who they'll go after. I don't know how much they're willing to pay for somebody. I would think that if they could get a closer at a reasonable price, they might take one from somebody, like maybe go get a Mason Miller from the A's. I don't know, because the A's have kind of come back down to earth. Don't seem like they're winning the way that they were earlier. And if the A's could get a haul for Mason Miller, I'm sure they'd be willing to part with him. Even though I don't know if I would, given the things that the A's supposedly have coming up over the next couple years. But anyway. All right. We had another manager fired over the weekend. Brandon Hyde with the Orioles was fired Saturday morning. The Orioles are off to a 15-28 start, 15-30 now, by the way. They didn't get the fire the manager win like so many teams do. The Pirates got it. I think the Rockies got it, but the Orioles were not able to get it. Again, just like everybody else, just like Bud Black, Derek Shelton, those guys, he's a scapegoat, right? Because the general manager is not going to fire himself. When the owner says, "What's the problem?" the general manager, again, is not going to raise his hand and say, "Me, I'm the problem. It's me." Thank you, Taylor Swift. It's just not going to happen. He's going to look, well, who's the guy under me? The manager? Yeah, let's fire the manager. Absolutely. And I feel like they're doing Hyde a little dirty here. He's a guy who was really liked by the clubhouse. You look at some of the statements that guys have made about the firing, and they're not happy about it. They're really upset by it. And I don't know if it feels a lot like it is Brandon Hyde, right? Like they're upset that their guy is gone. A guy who, like Cedric Mullins, has been through a lot with. Cedric Mullins was on some bad Orioles teams. Brandon Hyde has coached the Orioles through two 100-plus loss seasons. And now he's here. He's taken this team to the playoffs twice. No, they haven't won a playoff game, but they've been there, and they're still really, really young. The problem comes from the front office not doing enough to help this young core that they have, right? They didn't go get pitching that they needed. They let Corbin Burns walk. They let him go to Arizona. They didn't pay him the money that they were going to need to get him to stay, which, I guess if that's how you want to operate things, then so be it. But they haven't done what they've needed to do to help this team get to the next step. And is Brandon, so I don't know that this is necessarily the case, but sometimes you wonder, is Brandon Hyde a development guy who's going to help these guys get to the playoffs and get to the point where they're playing their best, or not their best, but great baseball, but he can't get them over the next hump of winning a playoff game and winning a playoff series and making a deep run? Or is he? I don't know. We haven't seen it yet. So it's interesting, but a lot of the chatter that I've seen is this team is platooning too much too. And I think that comes down from the front office as well. I mean, part of it is that they're not putting enough guys on this roster who they trust to play every day. Lefties who they trust to face lefties, righties who they trust to face righties. That you're platooning based on pitching matchups because you don't have the talent of everyday players that you can put on the field every day. I've said for the last several years that the problem I've had with Jerry Dipoto and the Mariners is that he's relying too heavily on platooning. It seems like it's working out right now, but part of the reason they're platooning as much as they are is because they're filling in a hole in right field, filling in a hole at second base. So they're platooning in those positions. They're not. At the start of the season, I don't think they were going to be platooning as much as they have been the last couple of years, because if you're platooning, you don't have the everyday talent that it takes to win at a really, really high level in Major League Baseball. You're filling holes. And if you're platooning, I feel like more than three or more positions, you've got problems. And in some cases it works out, but most of the time I don't feel like it does. If you're platooning too much, you don't have a good team. And that's all there is to it. So this is where the O's are at right now. As of Monday, they've lost 6 in a row, and 12 of their last 14. They're 15-30. Not in a good place. Guys who should be performing are not. Adley Rutschman is batting 209, 301, 340 with an OPS plus of 87. Remember, league average is 100 on OPS plus. Ryan Mountcastle has an OPS plus of 75. Tyler O'Neill, who frequently injured, right? Misses a lot of time with injuries. He's got an OPS plus of 76. It's not really working out well for the Orioles right now. They've got some problems, and it'll be interesting to see if their interim manager Tony Manzolino can fill in and right the ship. I don't know that it's necessarily going to be a manager that does, because they've lost 2 games under him already, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I don't know. It's ugly in Baltimore. We had some question marks, like I said, coming into the season because they didn't really do a whole lot to shore up the pitching staff, and it's not going well. So it's going to be an interesting train wreck to watch the rest of the season. Okay, MLB had its first ever rivalry weekend. It was fun. It was cool to see some of the matchups, but honestly, they didn't do anything super special to the schedule besides, I guess, putting emphasis on this weekend. Because everybody plays everybody now. We have a balanced schedule. So I don't know that it necessarily got the reaction that MLB wanted. But I will say, like I said, it was pretty fun having known about it. But I don't know how much the average fan was like, yeah, rivalries. It's not like college football or the NFL, right? Where your rivalries are big, and I don't know. The fact that you only play in those games once or twice a year, and now you've got 3 over a weekend. I don't know. It's fine, but I don't know. We'll see how it is going forward. My Mariners are 1 win away from winning the Better Cup, so there's that, and we'll get there in just a second. But some notable things from the weekend. Juan Soto returned to the Bronx for the first time since signing that massive contract with the Mets. His first at bat, the fans booed him. They rained the boos down from the seats, and he tipped his helmet to them and then proceeded to go 1 for 10 on the series. Was loafing on the bases and on the field. This is an interesting state. This is from Bob Clappish from NJ.com. He said, Mets hierarchy is concerned about Juan Soto's lack of enthusiasm. Soto agreed to be mic'd up during Sunday's game, which was on ESPN, but changed his mind because he's tired of answering questions about Aaron Judge and why he chose the Mets. He then bailed on reporters after the loss. Now, I don't feel like you have to be super enthusiastic about talking to the media. Right? Like, I get it. I always, when I was in college and covering different sports in my school, and then I had the opportunity to go cover a Twins game, which meant that afterwards I got to go to the clubhouse and talk to a few guys. I was standing in the scrum. Everybody was talking to Urban Santana. And one guy kind of hijacked the conversation, didn't let anybody else ask any questions. The trade deadline was coming up, so he's asking stuff about that. And he wasn't real thrilled about the line of questioning because it's all about the possibility of getting traded. And so it sucked. Like, I was like, man, I've got like one question I want to ask him, and I didn't get to because it's a hijacked situation. But I stuck around and I just said, hey, can I ask you a couple questions? I'm writing a story, all this stuff. And he's really nice and generous. I just asked him about things that he'd been doing because his ERA had spiked and he'd come back down. And so I was asking him about stuff like that, and he was really nice about it. And I said, hey man, I appreciate you sticking around. You didn't have to answer that question. He's like, no, that's cool. Like, no problem. And I was like, that's awesome. But I don't blame any player for not wanting to talk to the media because of experiences like that, where you have one guy who just has a story to write and he's framing his questions the way that he wants to and things like that. So I don't blame Juan Soto for being like, I'm tired of answering questions about Aaron Judge. I don't play with that guy anymore. I play for a different team now. I got Pete Alonso batting behind me now, or wherever in the lineup, right? Like, stop asking me about Aaron Judge. It's interesting though. It's really interesting that the honeymoon seems to be over with Juan Soto in Queens, and I don't think there will be buyer's remorse because he's going to produce, and they'll probably get results to some degree. I don't know if they'll necessarily win a World Series because I don't think they have that good of a team. And by that I mean I don't think they have a World Series winning team, despite their record. But anyway, so that was something interesting this weekend from rivalry weekend with the Mets. The Angels swept the Dodgers. What? This is the first time since 2010 that they have swept the Dodgers, and not just swept them, they swept them at Chavez Ravine in LA. They were not in Anaheim. They outscored the Dodgers 23-15 over 3 games. That's crazy. I did not see that coming. Did not have it on my rivalry weekend bingo card. Another thing, to be completely honest with you, I did not have on my rivalry weekend bingo card is the Mariners sweeping the Padres. Outscored them 15-3. The Mariners played probably their best series of the year, and that goes with having swept the Rangers, and then also having won 9 series in a row. They have never had a series where they were so complete, front to back, pitching, defense, offense. Now, I will say this. They were 0-for with runners in scoring position, I believe, through game 2. No, until late in game 2. And then game 3, there was everything. Because they were hitting home runs. Was the only way they were scoring for a while there. J.P. Crawford started off the series with a home run. That was exciting. But, man, I was not expecting the Mariners to go down to Petco and dominate the Padres the way they did. The Nats swept the Orioles. We just talked about how the Orioles lost a bunch recently. Well, the Nats swept them, outscored them 24-13, and hung 10 twice on them. Great time for the Nats to have the Orioles on the schedule, because they're not beating anybody right now. And we'll see how long that losing streak continues for the Orioles. The Phillies swept the Pirates. Again, I don't think that's to anybody's surprise. However, another Paul Skeens gem was absolutely wasted on Sunday. He pitched 8 innings, which ended up being a complete game because the Pirates lost and the Phillies were at home. Gave up 1 run on 3 hits, 9 strikeouts, and 1 walk. Get him some help. It's unbelievable. Brig and I are going to talk more about this when he gets back, because I want to have more of a conversation about Paul Skeens and the future with the Pirates with him. But man, it's awful, and I think you see that see the look on his face that he knows, he sees the writing on the wall with the situation that he's in, and he doesn't like it. He doesn't like it at all. Let's see what else. The Reds swept Cleveland's baseball club, outscored them 12-6. I did not see that coming. I assumed Cleveland would get at least 1, if not 2, or the sweep going the other way. I don't know, because I feel like Cleveland is probably the better team in that situation. But that said, I like the Reds. I like the Reds guys. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how that goes in the future. Really interesting that the Reds swept Cleveland. And then again, to no one's surprise, the Cubs swept the White Sox. And then again, the Giants swept the A's. So I want to know what you thought about rivalry weekend. I guess for me saying that it wasn't what I think maybe MLB wanted to get out of it, I just spent like 10 minutes talking about it. So maybe it was, I guess. And it ended up being everything that MLB wanted. All right, last thing here before I get out of here. The Red Sox released their new City Connect uniforms, calling them the Fenway Greens. Obviously, this is an ode to Fenway Park, which was built in 1912 and is the oldest MLB stadium in use. I read an article where they talked about how it took 2 years to come up with this design, and mostly because they wanted to make sure they got the color just right to match the green monster. I think that's too funny. It was just the green. It was the green. And one thing they said is that all along they wanted to go green. They wanted to go with the monster. And I think that's great. I love it. The green monster is one of the most iconic aspects of baseball, right? I think in bench warmers, when they have the stadium at the end where they have they said they brought in all the greatest features from all the stadiums in Major League Baseball. One of them, they have a little green monster. And I remember in high school going to play at a stadium that had a big wall, and we're like, oh, they've got a monster. It wasn't even green. They just had this big wall, and we just called it a monster because that's what it was. I don't think it was necessarily as tall as the green monster because that's probably not what you're going to have in high school, but it was cool. It was really cool to have that aspect on this field, and then for us to get to play there, like, oh man, we were just like, oh, let's pepper that thing with doubles. And then first pitch, one of my teammates hit a home run over it. That was pretty awesome. But anyway, on to the rest of this uniform. So this is what we're looking at here. Got a green hat with a white Boston B on it. The jerseys are green with a Red Sox across the chest and the same font as what's used on the monster. You're going to get double white lines around the neck and on the end of the sleeve. And I assume that that's just for the outline around the scoreboard and things and accents used on the monster. They went with white pants, which I am so happy. I was really worried. I remember we were seeing some leaks for this, and I was really worried they were going to go with green pants to go with the entire theme, but they went white, and they look great. Looks fantastic. Has 2 green stripes, just like on the neck and the sleeve, going down the side for piping. Now, some of the details that you're going to get on this uniform. Above the jock tag, you're getting 3 green and 4 red dots just above the above the jock tag, and those are for the lights that indicate balls and strikes on the green monster. When you see it, it's one of those things where you look at it like, oh, I know exactly what that is. This is the green monster. Those are the lights. It's really cool, really subtle, and a really cool little detail. On the back of the collar where the tag would be, they've got 1912. This is, again, is for the year that Fenway opened. And then on the sleeve, they've got their sponsorship patch on one sleeve. And then on the other side, you're going to get a Circle B logo, which actually comes from the Circle H or Circle E on the scoring indicators on the scoreboard. They've shown us the batting practice cap, which has a white crown with a green bill, and it's the Circle B on the front. And then on the side, you've got the ball and strike indicators on the side opposite of the New Era logo, which is going to be on the right side. And then it has green eyelets and a green squatchy. Now, I got to say, I love this way more than I thought I was going to. When we were getting leaks and it was showing all the green and everything, I was like, I'm not a big fan of the color green. I don't have an aversion to it like I do the color yellow, like I've talked about. But this looks really cool. It's really great the way that it nods to, like I said, one of the most iconic features of any stadium in all of baseball, in the green monster. The Red Sox have such a unique thing in the green monster that there's no way you can't embrace it. And I love that they went that direction. I like the green hat. Maybe that's my new St. Patrick's Day hat. I don't know. But it's really cool. The batting practice hat is awesome. I will never wear a white hat. Anybody who's been listening to this show for any time at all knows that. But this is cool. It's a good looking white hat. I'd say Brig might buy it, but he would never buy it because he's a Yankees fan. Maybe we'll buy it for him, and we'll send it to him. Then he has another white hat that he can wear. But it's all subtle. It's super basic. There's a few nods here and there to the monster, but like the old-timey stadium, like the old-timey wall, they're pretty basic. It's just a bunch of green with some white accents, and it works. It works out really well. They're not trying to overthink it. They're not trying to overdo it. A lot of these City Connects, they overdo it, and it just gets to be just like, oh my gosh, it's cluttered and it's too crowded and it just doesn't look good. I think that, no pun intended, they knocked it out of the park with this. I think it's great. I really love what they did. So good job on the Red Sox for another fantastic City Connect release. I like these way better than the others. Would I buy this? If I'm buying a Red Sox jersey, it's close because I really like the red. I really like the way that the Red Sox jersey looks. But I would certainly put it in my queue. How's that? It would end up in my cart, and I would have to make a decision because I think it looks really sharp and really crisp. It's a good looking uniform. All right, let's end with this. Today in baseball history, May 20th, 1948, playing the White Sox, Joe DiMaggio hits for the cycle, hitting 2 home runs and collecting 6 RBIs. in a Yankees win 13-2. Baseball family, thank you so much for joining me this week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and review everywhere that you can. If you're on YouTube and have not hit the like or subscribe button, go ahead and do that now because it helps out the show, and we really appreciate it. But baseball family, Brig will catch you Thursday night.